We ready, Madam Clerk?
Yes, Your Honor.
Very good. We'll go ahead and call this East Peoria working session to order. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Decker?
Here.
Hill?
Here.
Mingus?
Here.
Sutherland?
Here.
Mayor Call?
Here.
All present, Your Honor.
Thank you. Tonight's working session, of course, I'd just like to remind everyone no formal action will be taken by the council. However, it is on upcoming projects to apply for funding through Tri-County Regional Planning Commission and open up a discussion with us this evening, Ty Livingston and Rob Culp. And these gentlemen are going to kind of walk us through the purpose of the working session. They've had meetings with Rick Szymanski. Rick couldn't be here this evening, but he's been part of getting us to this point this evening. And we're looking for some feedback to take to Tri-County on projects that the city would like to submit for funding. And with that, Ty, turn it over to you gentlemen and let you explain it.
So Tri-County, as you mentioned, Regional Planning Commission has a call for projects. And what's different this time around is that they're bundling everything together. So in the past, it's been, we've got road money for reconstruction, we have road money for resurfacing, and then they did the non-motorized funds kind of separately. So they're wrapping everything together with the hopes, I think, of getting more competition, more people involved, better projects. We have been fortunate sometimes when we've gone through and applied for some of these when nobody else has. We've gotten, most recently here in front of SEFQ along Edmond Street, we received Federal Transit Administration funds, and that covered it entirely for that sidewalk connector to the Richland neighborhood. So we've certainly been able to take advantage of it, and I think we've got some really good projects here to talk about. As you'd mentioned, we'd gotten together with Rick Szymanski and Brad Brewer last week, along with Rob Culp. Funding availability, there's $11.3 million available. This is not all in the same year. To be clear, that we've got the road monies that are for FY 27 and 28. So we're talking, mid-calendar year 26 is the first time these could be spent. The traditional funds, we talked about the rebuild monies, 70-30. Talk to Rob, sometimes you get down the road, maybe that mix isn't exactly 70-30, maybe it's closer to 50-50, but you're still getting a project for half the cost that it would take if we had to do it on our own. 80-20 for resurfacing. One of the projects we have in the hopper for this year is East Washington Street from Maine all the way through 74. So that's one we've been able to take advantage of. FTA money, I mentioned earlier about that sidewalk along Edmond, and that's really anything to connect people to transit stops. It's also very good for those that ride bikes or are walkers. Carbon reduction, another 80-20 split, as well as transportation set aside. The last three are all non-motorized funding. You do have to come up with a match, obviously, with the 80-20, but it's great to see that kind of money available. The projects do require a resolution of support. This is why we wanted to take this before you, because the applications are due June 28th. It is a fairly involved application to submit. They're asking for a lot of information. But they do want resolutions of support from the council for these projects. I want to know that you all are on board with these, not staff thought this was a good idea and we're going to apply for it and hope to come up with money later. So that's what they're looking for. The projects we really honed in on, there's a couple of them. We have Centennial Hill. The first approach might be to resurface it. It was done back in 2008. It's in rough shape. The hill, particularly, if you think about the ICC entrance, and I can show the map real quick here. The ICC entrance really down the hill. There are some drainage issues. Rob can probably elaborate a little more on that as far as all the issues that are going on there, but it's not just the surface of the street.
Yeah, the road, I think the underlying roadway is shot. I think there's a lot of water underneath the roadway, so some under draining would work if you were to, go forward with rebuilding that section and leveraging the funds from the feds. There is some sloughing, there's some erosion issues that are going to need to be addressed that this project could incorporate into it as well. But yeah, I think that pavement has lived its useful life. And it's a high volume piece of roadway. It's one of the corridors into the city. I mean, I know it's at ICC, but that represents the city very well out there. So I did not recommend mill overlaying that. I think you're putting 5 years of money. 5 years later, you're going to be back trying to do something with that again. I think we all see asphalt pavements. Longevity over concrete isn't that long anymore.
Didn't we just overlay, wasn't that an overlay that we did in, was '08 or so?
Oh, wait, yeah.
Well, and you got your life out of it. I mean, that's,
Yes,
yeah,
yeah,
but
right.
I think now the joints underneath it are, by the time you went through and did a good pavement patching plan and then overlaid it, you might as well just
Right.
rebuild, unfortunately,
Yeah.
rebuild new.
It's in pretty rough shape. I was gonna see if I could bring up a Google Maps. I think I might have shut it down. Condition of the pavement right now, you have, this is on the hill itself. Might be hard to see back there, but there's certainly significant joint reflection coming through here. Curbs have largely been covered over when the mill or the overlay had been done. And the other piece that we have to look at here is projects of regional significance. That's certainly a high-scoring component of this. And so, as Rob mentioned, you've got ICC right there. It's definitely a connection for regional purposes, not just East Peoria, but for the region.
Yeah, and I just want to touch on that real quick, just so everyone understands too, because I sit on that commission. That is part of the criteria to get these projects approved. Is there a regional significance? It can't just, we're not looking for anyone that may be watching and saying, well, what about my neighborhood? What about my roadway? There's a lot of criteria involved in these projects, and that's why these guys had met previously to narrow it down to projects that would meet the criteria that's required. And I think that's important for the public and maybe you guys to understand.
Well, plus Centennial was a PUETS project before, the other phases of Centennial.
Yes,
so I
that's
think
correct.
this is a
And that
great
helps
ask.
too, right, continuity.
I agree.
So that'll actually help us in going for this.
It has in the past, if it's a continuation of a previous PUETS
Oh, good.
project.
I think just ICC being there, this is going to score very well.
Yes.
I mean, it's
Yeah.
mass transit, ICC, this will, I mean, if you prove this, I suspect it'll get selected.
Don't all of our roads lead to ICC in East Peoria?
Feels like it.
Some
So,
way,
so this
shape.
comes with a pretty high price tag. This is for a full reconstruction of just that hill. Rob has it pegged out at about 5.1 million. So it is something that we would certainly want to budget for. The resurfacing component, one of the things we'll need to take a look at is for any resurfacing project, there is a limit to where they're saying that the condition of the roadway is too far gone. We were very fortunate with Washington when we submitted it because I don't think it's fared very well in the last couple of years. No. So we're fortunate to get that one going. But there is a threshold where they say this is too far gone, we're not going to support resurfacing. I'll defer to Rob as far as top of the hill back to Highview. We might be able to squeak it in, but it's in better shape than the hill, but marginally so.
Even East Washington Street, I think the underlying base of East Washington Street's in great shape. The surfaces wore out. I would argue the same on the top of the hill there. I don't see a lot of pavement failures. I just see a lot of surface failures. Yeah. And so I mean, obviously they may disagree in the end, but I would argue hard that is not failed pavement. It just needs new surface.
Yeah.
So are you talking about grinding and milling?
At the top of the hill, basically, where that right in, right out entrance is there that was added 10 years ago?
Right
From
here.
there on to where the concrete is, we'd mill overlay, and then there down would be a complete reconstruct. And you can see it in the pavement if you go out there and stand. You can see the underlying joint failures going down the hill. And as you look back the other direction at the top of the hill, it looks different. There is surface cracks, it's just not the same.
Yeah.
And it's about that area.
Yeah, here's August 2011. You can see
Yeah. Big difference.
it has
Yeah.
seen its useful life. Okay, so the other project, here we'll get back to, oh, didn't want that. Would be Riverside. And so this is down, this is a very heavy traveled area. Lowe's, Chili's, Texas Roadhouse. It's a project that also would certainly be qualified for the resurfacing. I think curb and gutter are in pretty good shape. The project proposal here would include sidewalk that would connect. We have an intersection project that's moving forward this summer, Riverside and Camp. It would connect the Camp Street Trail down to the Riverfront Trail. That is also a enhancement in the scoring of the projects as well too. Anytime you can include non-motorized funds as a part of it. And the beauty of that is we can tap into some of those non-motorized funds and make sure we get 80-20 on the sidewalk versus 70-30 or whatever we wind up with when we get down to the time to run the road projects. That's the stretch here that we're showing, basically from Bass Pro Drive to Camp.
And I would argue, you know, both these projects are worthy, and we can submit for both of them,
Yeah.
just so everyone's aware of that.
Does that hurt submitting for two?
No, but you may end up getting your number 2 versus your number 1, but,
Yeah, we would not get both resurfacing.
yeah,
They
right,
only award
correct.
one.
Yeah.
I just didn't know if we had a better shot if we put one being, as a community, what I was getting at is you have a better shot if East Peoria puts in for one, being like East Peoria put in for one.
Right.
We feel like they're a contributor to the local.
So each of the projects score on their own. Now, whether or not it's, we're going to put our eggs in one basket or not, you know, that might be something we can figure out what makes sense. But they're supposed to score independently. That there could be cases where you get two projects that, you know, score very well from the same community.
And who scores them?
So they have a pretty involved application, and then they have a review committee, typically of folks that have not submitted projects. So, but it would be peers.
Okay, thank you.
But they've done a lot to try to make the process very objective. That,
Yeah, they've.
25
in the
years ago
last-
was not so much.
No, in the last 5 years, it's really pivoted towards a very unbiased, good commission that is objective in how they score these projects and approve them.
Yeah. Certainly, this road doesn't look as bad as Centennial, but it's certainly one that, you know, you can see where the pavement, if you think about it, I think this pavement was done in '97 when that development was done. And so we've certainly got our useful life out of it.
No question.
Can you explain to me what resurfacing is?
Sure. Rob can probably give you the technical explanation.
It would be like what we're going to do on East Washington Street. They're going to come in and mill off, say, 2.5 inches, and put back 2 to 2.5 inches, whatever's.
So
milled off
you're
in
not
the
raising
asphalt.
manhole lids up and stuff like that?
Yeah, they would
right?
adjust manhole lids and everything else, so it's, whatever has settled or whatever the bumps are would be corrected as a part of that
Yeah,
project.
what I hated is, and still do, in the trade, and that is having 2 or 3 feet of concrete lid risers before you hit a set of steps, you know, getting down inside for maintenance purposes. Because of it saved money up on top, then it made it nearly impossible to do maintenance down underneath the road. I mean, a lot of people won't understand that until they try to get in one, and you know what I'm talking about.
No, and you're a good point. These are the times to get in there and fix those, you know, when we're going to, before we mill and overlay. That's a very good point, because you don't know till you open the lid, and you're right, it's not comfortable to try and jump down 3 feet to a step. You know, I agree with you, Commissioner, that's a very true statement.
Okay, thank you.
How much was the Riverside Drive project again? Estimate
2.7 million.
2.7. Thank you.
So other projects we took a look at. So those are the two that we felt really rose to the top and have a strong chance of getting good consideration from the review committee. Fond du Lac Drive is obviously the one that comes up. It's a big project. It's something that probably needs a little more investigation work on. We really don't have any sort of engineering or really a good SWOT to look at it yet, but it's one that, you know, somewhere on the horizon might be well served that, you know, next time there's a round of earmarks or there's a big transportation bill that gets funded at the federal level, maybe there's an opportunity there. Highview Road.
Can I ask a quick question? Maybe I should know the answer to this, but I'm going to ask. Is Fond du Lac Drive ours or the Park District's?
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing.
That's why Ty was smiling at me,
Maybe
because
that's
I already
not- maybe
told
that's
Ty,
not
I'm
a bad
like, that's Park District.
It is the Park Districts. We do assist with some
Yeah.
snow plowing and what have you, but it is the Park Districts.
Okay.
Who would
That's what I thought.
pay
I
for their
was-
20% then? Would we pay the 20% or 30%, or would the Park District do that?
That's a great question.
That'd be the Park District.
They would, I mean, because they're the local owners, they would be responsible for the local.
So all we're doing is applying in their stead.
Well, so the thought here would be is that, you know, is there a scenario someday where the roadway gets completely rebuilt? You get proper drainage structures on there, which we don't have. You get some really great opportunities for non-motorized, for bikes and peds up there. And, you know, then at some point, they would transition the property over to us. I don't know. You know, does it become the city's maintenance responsibility at some point? I don't think we want it in the condition that it's in, and you know, maybe never, but it would be something you'd want to go in for, like I said, an earmark or some other type of funding that maybe this traditional funding would not be a great fit for.
Well, and you'll hopefully get my drift, as a sewer contractor, the sewer's deep underneath that road, and those lines are falling apart, they're all clay. So would we replace that main and bring it out before the reconstruction? Because that road's has to be dug up every time somebody sewer fails now. And that's gonna be like, let's just say it's one house a year up there. That's ridiculously high, actually, but it's coming.
No, I think whatever happens on Fond du Lac, yes, the utilities themselves would have to be looked at as well.
But is that part of the
We didn't do an estimate on that?
It's a really gross number that I threw out there. That's.
Did you? Okay, I did not do an
40 to
estimate on that
50
then.
million.
I will say, I think what else is gonna happen, there's gonna be a serious discussion at some point from IDOT about that bridge and what they want to do with that bridge, or if they even want to keep that bridge. So I'm not.
Oh, they're gonna keep the bridge, and they're gonna paint the bridge, and they're gonna maintain the bridge.
I know, I'm just saying, be prepared.
That Cedar
Some-
Street Bridge can go before Fond du Lac Bridge goes.
I agree, I'm
Yeah.
just, be prepared that might be something in the future
Yeah.
that there's gonna be a discussion coming
Sure.
about that, so.
I'm waiting for the headline tomorrow saying that we're discussing closing the bridge.
Oh, yeah, no. No one's closing the near future, but I can see that coming at some point, about what to do with the bridge.
Yeah.
So some other projects that we looked at, we've got Highview Road. Certainly there's the S-curve component. We've applied before for PUAT's funding, and it's not a strong candidate, and that's the area that's kind of where it ties in with Oakwood. And there's also the piece that as you go up the hill, get to the top of the hill and get to Illini. That's also in the sides are raveling. It's a challenging piece. Once again, probably not a great fit for PUAT's funding. A couple of others we talked about, this dedicated right turn lane on West Washington at Maine. This was, Rick threw this one in there. So this is in front of the former Regions Bank building to facilitate that right turn movement, because if you go through there in rush hour, or really most times of the day, you get a couple of cars in that right lane going straight through the intersection. You're not turning right until you get a green light.
Right.
Bass Pro Drive, another one that's probably going to be driven by development, but there's something that's on the horizon at some point. The last one actually has some potential, and this is a Main Street ped crossing at Mariners Way, and this is one that came through the Mass Transit District, something that Rob and his team worked on to take a look at pedestrian crossings to facilitate better access to transit. This is one that the Mass Transit Board, as I understand it, actually has some funds that we could use to match, and will be something we talk to the board in June about to inquire with that group. But that would be a really good fit for them.
Yeah, and that's something that's been mentioned by multiple.
And the funding could be, like, sometimes they have more funding than they have projects on that, right? I mean, that's
Right.
not uncommon to get 100% funding on.
Well, and that's the only challenge is they're bundling everything together. But yes, the FTA funds have been, they're not quick to arrive, but they certainly have been beneficial.
A lot of local agencies don't apply for them.
Yeah.
I mean, they're overlooked, so I mean, there's a chance I could be 100% funded.
Sure.
So that's all we've got for the group. We certainly would entertain any other questions or.
Yeah, and I
thoughts
think
on-
is what you're looking for is some feedback from the council, not necessarily right this second, but we know we have a tight timeline to get everything together, so you're looking for feedback from them within, give them a timeline, so we,
Couple of weeks for sure. We do
Okay.
need to come back in June, for sure by the second meeting, because these applications are due by the 28th.
right. To Ty's point, that's why we're having the working session tonight, because they would look for council support as part of that. And that's required of everybody, just so you know. They want to make sure that you're committed to the project, even though it's years out, and our costs will go up, guaranteed.
I would like to
But the
ask.
percentage won't change.
Yeah. Rob, your opinion, between Centennial and Riverside, should we submit one or should we submit both?
I think Centennial is going to score the highest no matter what you do. The only thing that if there's only so much money and Centennial, they only give you say 2 million, but Riverside, you might get a higher percentage of that because there's so much ask, then you might want, you might say, well, we'd rather do Riverside. I mean, that might be your preference. But Centennial's going to score high, and it's going to get, I will be shocked that it doesn't get funded. I think Ty would agree.
Yeah, I mean, worst case scenario would be they come back and say both are great projects
Yeah.
and can be funded. You're going to have to choose between the resurfacing on Centennial or resurfacing on Riverside.
I guess my fear is if we have both out there and they see an opportunity to
Yes.
give us Riverside Drive, but yet still have that extra money to award a different project someplace else. So
That's a good fear. I would, if you guys want, I would put it on Centennial if you feel that's agreeable, that's the biggest, bestest need in this round. I think with the college there, it's just going to be hard. I'll be shocked
okay.
Yeah.
if they don't support second access to that college like they always have.
Yeah, I tend to agree. Public comments. Don, anything? No?
I think the Centennial, that hill definitely needs to be rebuilt.
Yep. All right. Thanks, Don. Council, anything else?
I mean, I would agree with Centennial. It's bad and it's getting worse. So, I guess I have a question that's not. It was brought up. So, 2 questions. What would a pedestrian crossing on Main Street look like?
That is a great question. I don't know that I have that up. But I can bring it to the intersection and show you real quickly here. So Mariners Way is the topic, and it's basically because you have a bus route that goes on one side of the street there. It turns off of Main Street and goes on the frontage road. So your only stops are over here, and you have employment centers that are over here on this side of the street. So the crossing at this intersection, as I recall from the layout that Rob had provided, but you could use this as a refuge island and then utilize the middle to provide some crossing over, but you'd provide sidewalks all the way across here.
So not an elevated crossing?
No.
Just- okay.
Grade separated would be ideal, but that is way more than,
Gotcha. Okay.
than I think most people are willing to spend. It's quite pricey.
I think also I've seen now where they've moved to some experimental where they put like 2 red lights up there, so if a pedestrian's crossing, they flash, and that way it gets your attention that, hey, there's a pedestrian crossing where if you're gonna run a light, maybe that's the one not to run.
Right.
But to try and get drivers' attention. I've seen those in some other locales that looks like the DOT's experimenting with or maybe adopting.
I mean, anytime you get 100% funding, if that were the case, I'd say put in for something if we can get it 100% funded. But I don't know what the chances of that are or what that would look like. But
Yeah. I think it's something we'd want to take a look at. I mean, if there's an opportunity to do something more robust, but what you hate to do is commit to something and say, we're going to do this, and then come back and, well, since we're not getting 100% funding, we're going to really scale it back.
I mean, you'll definitely get the 80, I agree.
Yeah.
And they have recently been funding those,
Yeah.
there's just not enough projects.
and I guess my last question, this is not on there, but last time Fond du Lac Drive was done, who paid for that? I mean, why wasn't that's been?
It was the interstate project, I believe, correct? When they built the interstate?
No, I mean the road has been resurfaced in the past 20
Oh,
years.
gotcha.
But was it the heat scarification?
It was an agreement, had a couple things in it, one being the resurfacing of the park, Festival Lights Park, and Ty, you probably might remember the
It was
details
probably
better.
15 years ago that it
was.
was done, something like that,
Yeah.
I remember.
And it was an agreement to get the park done, Fond du Lac Drive, and I can't remember
Yeah.
what our portion was. Rick, I'm sure, would be able to remember, I just can't right now.
So did we pay for it or did the park?
No, it was split.
We stood on the park, but
I
like
think it was
saying that it
split.
was
I
their
think there was a
responsibility.
trade-off of some sort,
Yeah.
if
I
I
was just
could
curious,
remember.
'cause-
Tied into the park, the Festival of Lights use, Winter Wonderland or
Yeah,
something like that.
I agree with the mayor.
I don't
we
remember
need to
the
remember
details, but-
that that's the parks. And
Yeah,
No,
I
it was
agree. I was
definitely
just
park.
curious.
Sure.
Anything else? I'm hearing none. I seek a motion to adjourn the working session.
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Mingus and Commissioner Decker. Any discussion? Hearing none. Roll call.
Commissioner Decker?
Aye.
Mingus?
Aye.
Sorry. Hill?
Aye.
Mingus?
Aye.
Sutherland?
Aye.
Mayor Call.
Aye.
All present voting aye, Your Honor.
Thank you. The working session is adjourned, and the regular meeting shall start in about 5 minutes.
Yes, Your Honor.
Very good. We'll go ahead and call this regular meeting of the East Peoria City Council to order. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Decker?
Here.
Hill?
Here.
Mingus?
Here.
Sutherland?
Here.
Mayor Call?
Here.
All present, Your Honor.
Thank you. Please rise.
Increase its appeal. We also worked hard to make it possible to subdivide our property so a similar home could be built on our property. To our and our neighbors' benefit, we also worked with the City of East Peoria to proactively change the location and type of barricade on Newman Lane just outside our Newman Lane driveway from a large, ugly, and largely impassable dirt mound-based barricade with industrial highway-sized metal road barriers to a greatly improved, much more friendly, simple, and attractive road ends barrier, which restored the original ability to use